Okay, class, now that you've met Aristotle and saw a little bit about his rhetorical triangle and a little bit about what that means, you see that there are three different appeals, and we're just going to do a quick overview with this Prezi presentation. I'm going to talk you through it, but we'll go more into detail on each part and use this throughout the whole year. So this is very important. Of course, the three main appeals are logos, pathos, and ethos, and they're all used for a certain reason. Whenever a speaker is speaking, he has a purpose, and it's to make people think, to make people understand, to make people believe something, or to make people feel a certain way. And they either want to elicit action or to stop an action. Okay, again, the three main appeals, if you can see my mouse there. Logos deals with logic. Means every argument should be logical. It should make sense. It should have reason and like an if-then statement. If this is true, then this is true, and that's basically logic. Also, ethos means credibility. It means you're an ethical speaker. As a speaker, you need to create that. You need to have a way that tells your audience, I'm credible. Pathos is the evoking of emotion. Every persuasive occasion has three elements. The first element is the speaker himself, and again, the speaker's main objective is to establish credibility, and this is whether you're speaking or writing or whatever medium you're using. Aristotle was mainly talking about speaking. Secondly, you have the message. The message that you're putting out there needs to be logical. And then thirdly is the audience. And the idea with the audience is mainly to evoke a certain emotion. Emotion is what creates action. When you can make someone have an emotion, that leads to action. And that's what you also need to be aware that's what a speaker is trying to do to you. And when you're the audience, your job is to evaluate the speaker's credibility and to evaluate whether or not his message is logical, if it's real. Every speaker needs to establish credibility, and there are five main ways to do that. Is he knowledgeable? Does he seem knowledgeable about what he says? Obviously, every teacher, when you come into their room, that's one of the things you're looking for right off. Do they seem to know what they're talking about? And that's really important. They seem to know, be experts in that field. Virtuous, very important. Here's a picture of Gandhi here. I understand that I would lose, but I had to morally. When I donated my kidney, since I had to follow my heart, I decided to risk. When someone is speaking in these terms, they're saying, hey, this wasn't really about me. It was beyond me. And so what I'm a person you can trust because I'm not worried about my own gain as much as I am yours. Funny picture here. Very experienced centurion here. Again, here's an example of someone who would have credibility if they were talking about how to live a long time. You'd probably listen to them because this woman's lived 100 years. Obviously not as healthy choice right there, though. So experience. When I was growing up, my parents went through a rough divorce. So obviously if they're talking to you about, the toughness of growing up in a divorce, that's someone you might listen to. Someone who hasn't had that experience, you might not believe as much. When I was in Vietnam, my dad was a Vietnam veteran, so he has firsthand experience of what that's like, and I've heard a lot of those stories, and it's interesting. He was right in the middle of the battles, combat, all that stuff. Has a Purple Heart, all those things. So if he was going to do a talk or write about Vietnam, he would definitely have that experience. In school, I had the hardest time in English class, but after, so you've had this experience, I can say this to you exactly. I never really had a really good English teacher that I really, jived with, and I really didn't take off as an English student or a writer or a reader until after high school. So I can tell you that's an experience that I've had. So if maybe you struggle with English, I can identify, and I've had that experience. Okay, in my 9 years of teaching, I've only taught 5 or 6 years, so I don't have that much experience. Credentials, and I showed you that on my Telegami. I did some of that, told you my credentials, when I got my college degree and the things I've studied. I've studied a lot of different things, and I'm 44 years old, so I do have just some experience, and credentials just come with time. You do develop, hopefully, some wisdom over time. Good-willed. I understand how you feel, but I am concerned about what will happen if you decide to. You have to believe that someone has your best interests at heart. This is so frustrating for parents who obviously have their kids' best interests at heart, and a lot of times kids don't see that. That's hard for them to see. And teachers also. I mean, everything I do is to help you succeed, but sometimes people don't believe you. They just kind of don't want to. They just believe that you're just doing things that maybe aren't in your best interest. Even though it goes against my ideals, I still have to admit. So yeah, even if I can be proven wrong too, I don't care about being right as much as I care about. Let me pull this out so you can be sure and see it all. Okay. Next we have but only to the occasion. The audience. The audience, of course, is an important part of. Let me get this in where you can see it. I have trouble here. Okay. Audience. Giving statistics to persuade a 5-year-old. Okay, obviously your audience is another really important aspect of a speech or a writing or any kind of communication. Whether if you're writing to a 5-year-old, you're going to have to use very simple language, very immediate gratification, where with an experienced adult, you're going to have to give more logical statistics, more facts, and maybe, hopefully, an adult can look more long range to what will benefit not just himself but society as a whole. Where a 5-year-old, they just want to know where's the candy right now. So audience makes a big difference. The issue. Trust me, I'm a doctor. Now hand me that baking sheet and spatula. Okay, think about that a second. The old saying, I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV. So, people do that all the time on pharmaceutical commercials and things. Obviously, the doctor is just an actor playing a doctor, so but it makes everybody feel better because he looks like a doctor. But it depends on the issue. Like if I'm going to talk to someone, but I'm an English teacher, so I probably wouldn't listen to me about math. I might steer you wrong. I mean, that's probably a bad example. Anything. Everybody suddenly thinks they're an expert on everything. And when you see the news media come around and ask some guy from Palermo, Arkansas about foreign policy, he's probably not an expert on that issue. Another probably bad example. I mean, there's just the issue matters. Is the person an expert or someone that you should listen to for that particular issue? Just because a guy's a doctor, that means he's probably kind of smart, but it doesn't mean he's a good chef. That's much more simple. Logos, the logic of a. I'm trying to make this a little bigger. I'm gonna get this over here. Okay. Every message should be structured around logic. And this is not always the case, and And we have, and I don't mean to get too political, but there's just no way to avoid it. We have a president right now that has never made a logical statement in his public life, and yet he became president. So obviously pathos and emotion can sometimes play a lot bigger role. Every message should be logical, but that's not always the case, and sometimes you can get around it. Example, proof, conclusion. X, so Y. And that this is, like I said, kind of logic is about if then, or an example and a proof. And this example here was from this teacher who did this PowerPoint, which it wasn't me. Just want to give credit to Mr. Abuel here. And this is kind of a strange example, I think, but I hope this didn't happen. Mr. Abuel killed a student, so he should go to jail. Pretty simple. I mean, he's trying. That's the basic argument. You know, if Mr. Abuel killed a student, then he should go to jail, and that would be your very simple argument you're trying to make to your audience, and I think probably everyone would agree with that. There are other situations involved. Obviously, maybe the student took a shot at him. Okay, and so maybe he was in self-defense. So there's other issues there involved, but. Premise, reason, conclusion. Okay, killing is wrong. Okay, you start with that. Killing is wrong, and right there, everybody's like, yeah, I think everybody believes that for the most part. So Mr. Abuel should go to jail. That's another way to make a logical argument. And that's good because you get everybody fired up. Killing is wrong, and this is, you know, you get everybody into a fervor. And then you say, well, Mr. Bell killed this person, so put him in jail. So that's how you do that. And then the last of the appeals is pathos, evoking emotion. Again, probably overall in human history, the most effective way of getting a point across or winning an argument is if you can tap into people's emotions. And here's some of the main ways you do that. Loaded words, extreme evidence, disturbing details, and biased information. I kind of want to say we're probably in the age of this, but maybe it's always been that way and I just didn't notice as much. I don't think I've ever seen a time in my life when there was more of this. Loaded words, extreme evidence, disturbing details, biased. We're just constantly inundated, probably partly because of the internet and the proliferation of information in general, to get people's attention. You know, it's just it's extremes on both sides of disturbing. I mean, how every day you can look online and find all of these loaded words, white supremacists, anti-fascist, Nazi. It's everywhere right at this second. It couldn't be a bigger time. That all things that obviously strike up a lot of extreme emotions in people. Extreme evidence, disturbing details again. You know, there was some details about, a young African-American man, getting his head bashed in by a bunch of tiki torches, and that gets people emotional, obviously. And then there's biased information. One thing you have to realize is that all information is biased in some way, and that's hard for me. It took me a long time to understand that everybody is coming from a little bit of a slant. Positive feelings, satisfaction, anticipation, patriotism. Patriotism is a big one that people try to appeal to. You know, if you're American, are you an American? It would be the American thing to do, okay? And that gets people to do a lot of things. Let's go to Iraq and have this war because it's the American thing to do. Desire, think about it. Money, fame, love, and power all can be yours if you simply. Okay, some negative emotions. If you don't do it, you'll end up getting killed. Okay, I'm about to the end of this video, so I'm going to go ahead and just stop it right here, and I will start another one in just a moment.